transition dietitian, and this is going to be my second video for the day, and it's going to be all about the RD exam. It's going to cover the basics of the exam, what you should be studying, and what resources you should use to study for this exam. So just to get started, the basic outline of the exam is going to be 125 questions. They're all going to be multiple choice, so you don't have to worry about any essays or any short answers or things like that. It is 125 questions. Now when I say that, only 100 of the questions are going to count towards your grade, and 25 are not going to count. It sounds weird, but the 25 questions that don't count are kind of like practice questions for future exams. They want to put those into there to see, are these realistic questions that we can put on a future exam? Are students going to know this or not? So just be aware of that. It is graded on a scale of 1 to 50, which is weird because there's 100 questions. The best way to explain this is that some questions are worth more than others based on their difficulty. So not sure how they kind of determine which ones are harder and which ones are easier, but just so you know, it's going to be out of 50 points. 25 is going to be a passing score. So you just want to make sure that you score a 25 or a higher on the exam. Let's see, it's going to be in a testing facility, so you're going to drive to a Pearson View. That's where I went and did it. And you're going to usually schedule this about a month in advance. So something I had heard from my preceptors and kind of took into my planning of the exam is that it's going to take you about a month to study. So once you finish your internship and your director sends in your information to the Commission on Dietetic Registration, the CDR, then they're going to send you back a username and a password that you're going to use to log into Pearson View and schedule your test. I highly suggest doing it in about 2.5 weeks to a month, I think is what would work out best. I had a couple friends that did it in a week, and they were studying, 10 hours a day, it seemed like, and just totally cramming. Didn't sound fun to me. But I did mine in about a month, and I studied for probably 2 to 5 hours per day, based on how I felt and how determined I was that day to study. But I think that's going to be about a good time. You are going to have a lot of different options for studying for the exam, and I used 3 different resources which I would highly suggest that you guys use because they helped me so much. The first one is the Gene Inman study guide, and what it is it's just basically a giant study guide that goes over everything you learned in your bachelor's degree and your internship, just all crammed into a book, and I think it was the best resource that I had. They also provide you with 1,000 questions, study questions, that you can use, and honestly, probably I saw 10 questions verbatim from the study guide on the exam. So I definitely say go through all 1,000 study questions and go through the entire book. Now I say it takes about a month to study because this is my book. As you can see, it's about 200 pages long or so. So it's a lot of information that you're going to be going over. But I highly suggest this. You can take a class with Gene Inman and she'll review it in person, or you can get the video tape or I forget what they're called, the audio disc, I guess, where you can just listen to her talk. And, I had that playing in my car. I would play it as I would go to sleep, stuff like that. I think that was a great resource to use. The second resource that I had used, it was called the RD Review app, and you can get this on both Apple and Android. You can purchase the full app for $19.99, I believe, but I just used the free one. The free one did come with about 200 practice questions, so I thought that was good. Whenever I was just bored, I would sit there and review the questions that were on there. And then the third one that I had used, which was probably my first favorite one, which was the RD in a flashcards. These ones were amazing. There's about 600 flashcards, and I knew every single card that was in that box. They were probably one of the best resources I had. Probably Gene Inman and the RD in a flash were kind of equal. I think they're about the same, but they both helped me tremendously. Now these flashcards will run you about $125, which is pretty expensive, so in the description box below I did include a link to Quizlet.com, and some girl She has the work ethic that I have never seen before. Inserted every single RD and a flashcard into this thing. So you can go to this website and use that if you'd like, or you can go onto Amazon and buy the cards, but they're going to run you about $100. The Gene Inman review, I forgot to mention the price. This one is pretty expensive. I believe it cost me about $385. So it's pretty expensive, but what I had done was I went in with a few friends and we had all pitched in some money and we shared the book. So someone took the test first and then gave it to the next person who gave it to the next person, and that's what we did. And I mean, if you have $400 to spend, I say go for it, but I didn't, so I shared the cost with a couple of my friends, but I would say that those 3 resources were the best ones to use, definitely. So just some stuff that was on the exam that I would suggest for you guys to really study and know is mostly food service and kind of management government stuff. I guess management and government are kind of in the same section together. Definitely food service. I would probably say that 50% of my questions were food service questions, regarding foodborne illness, like what kinds of things you need to do in the kitchen to be safe, etc., stuff like that. And then also management concepts were huge in mine. It was different management theories, what you would do in a crisis situation that they would give you. They'd ask you what step you would do first and stuff like that. And then also the government assistance programs were very huge, like, the SNAP-Ed, knowing all the policies from the government that apply to nutrition, food service-wise. Mostly it was like workman's comp, union stuff. Unions were huge. I had about 3 questions on unions and different policies that went along with that and kind of how a union worked. I would say the next biggest thing was the community stuff, new community programs and interventions and the most effective way to do that. But I gotta say, probably the thing that I would spend the least amount of time on, not saying that you should skip this at all, but spend the least amount of time on is clinical. Because a lot of the clinical stuff is memorization, like lab values, knowing the different diagnoses, things like that. They're not really going to test you on. They don't want to see how well you can regurgitate information back, but they want to know if you understand the concepts of being a dietitian in a management role, whether it's in clinical, community, or food service situations. So when it comes to memorizing different lab values and their ranges, I skipped it 100%, and I didn't have one question really on anything clinical. So, and neither of my friends did either. They said that the most of their stuff was, the business, the government, and food service stuff. So that's what I would really spend my time on in the Inman's Guide, is the food service. Yeah, that was probably the biggest one for you. Let's see. You do get your test results back immediately when you take the test. So when you get to, I believe it is 125 questions, if you either do so well that you passed or so bad that there's no way you're going to fail or there's no way that you're going to pass, the computer is going to shut you off. And you're going to have to take this exit quiz to see how the testing center did. But if you're kind of, on the cusp between passing and not passing, then they're going to give you 20 additional questions. So there is a possibility you're going to have 145 questions on this exam. But don't be too worried if you have to take the additional 20. They just want to give you that extra chance to pass, stuff like that. But once it does cut you off, like I said before, you take the little test or the survey to say how well Pearson VUE did in testing you, and then you go out to the front where the man who had taken you to your seat will be there waiting with your test results for you, printed off, and it's going to tell you immediately whether you got that or not. So I think that's about a good review of the exam. Sorry, I kind of jumped around throughout the whole thing, but different thoughts were popping in my head at different times about the exam. All I'd have to say is use these 3 resources, study your little hearts out for up to a month. More than that, I think you're going to wear yourself out and you're going to get bored and anxious. So I'd say limit it to about a month of studying. Be confident, know who you are. You made it through an internship, so you're going to make it through the exam. I have all the faith in the world in you. You'll do great. It's much easier than getting the internship and going through DICUS, all that stuff. So you guys are going to do great, and you're going to do fantastically on this exam. I already know that because you've been watching the videos and you are, just very dedicated to being a dietitian. If you have any questions for me specifically on the exam, like what things to study or different resources, comment below, and I will get back to you as soon as I get your comment. I'm going to do one more video next week on different questions that internships and preceptors alike will be asking you in the interviews to become, one of their interns. I'm going to wait about a week so that I can contact various internships around the community and get all that information in. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you guys are doing great in your internships and great in your undergrad, and I can hopefully see you in the hospital sometime soon.